3 months from now, I, Madeleine Fortier, will be wearing a wedding dress that costs more than everything I've earned in my entire life. Not for love, not by choice, but because the most insufferable man I've ever met blackmailed me into it. And the worst part? I dug my own grave. 3 months earlier. The ballroom of the Grandeur Hotel was packed with people who had probably never set foot in a regular department store. Swarovski crystals hung from the ceiling like frozen raindrops, and the champagne the waiters served cost more per glass than my monthly rent. I shouldn't have been there. But when your best friend begs you to substitute for her at a waitressing job because she got food poisoning, and the payment is triple your weekly salary, you go, even if it means serving caviar to people who probably don't even know the price of bread. More champagne? I offered with my best professional smile to a group of women covered in jewels. One of them ignored me completely, continuing her conversation about the deplorable quality of that season's white truffles. I took a deep breath and moved on, balancing the silver tray as if my life depended on it. That's when I saw him. Perfectly purposefully messy black hair, a suit that probably cost more than a car, and that smug smile that screamed, "I'm better than you and I know it." He was surrounded by a small group of admirers, gesturing widely as he told some story that made them laugh at all the right moments. Hadrian Blackwell. I knew who he was. Everyone did. Only son of real estate mogul Richard Blackwell, heir to a fortune estimated in the billions and, according to the gossip magazines I definitely didn't read during my breaks at the cafe where I worked, the city's most coveted and arrogant bachelor. I quickly looked away and tried to slip past unnoticed on the other side of the ballroom. "You there, waitress." I pretended not to hear. "Hey, the one in the black uniform." Impossible to ignore. I turned slowly, forcing a smile. Hadrian Blackwell was waving at me as if calling a dog. My fingers gripped the tray tightly. "Yes, sir?" "Bring me something worth drinking. This champagne tastes like a politician's promise." He laughed at his own joke, and his group obediently joined in. I took a deep breath. "Professionalism, Madeleine. Think of the payment." "The champagne is Cristal brand, sir. One of the finest." "I know what brand it is." He interrupted me, those dark green eyes assessing me with the same interest one assesses a piece of furniture. "And it's still boring. Get me an Armand de Brignac." "The gold. Do you know what that is, or do I need to spell it out?" My smile trembled at the edges. Several faces were watching us now, waiting for my reaction. "I'll check if we have any available, sir." "Don't check. Get it." He turned back to his group, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "That's what we pay you people for, isn't it?" Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the double shift I'd worked at the cafe that morning. Maybe it was my grandmother's hospital bill I couldn't pay. Maybe it was simply the accumulation of years being treated as invisible by people who were born with golden spoons in their mouths. "Actually," I heard my own voice say, surprisingly calm, "the Cristal champagne is excellent. The problem isn't the drink, sir. It's your palate, clogged from breathing all that rarefied air up there in your tower of arrogance." The silence was immediate and absolute. Hadrian Blackwell turned slowly, those green eyes now fixed on me with an intensity that made my stomach churn. But it was too late to back down. "Excuse me?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You heard me." My heart was beating wildly, but I kept my chin up. Maybe if you treated people with a minimum of respect instead of like personal servants, you'd discover the world is much less boring than you think. Someone beside him whispered something inaudible. A blonde woman in a red dress widened her eyes, her ring-covered hand over her mouth. Hadrian himself looked genuinely shocked, as if it were the first time in his life anyone had confronted him. Then, to my horror and confusion, he smiled. Not a smug smile. Something more dangerous, something that seemed to say, "Interesting." "What's your name?" "That doesn't matter because I'm leaving." I placed the tray on the nearest table with a control I didn't know I possessed. "Wait." I didn't wait. I walked toward the exit with all the dignity I could muster, even feeling dozens of gazes burning into my back. I heard the event manager's voice calling me, probably to fire me on the spot, but I didn't stop. The cold night air hit my face like a slap of reality. What had I done? I'd just lost the payment I desperately needed, and my friend would probably also lose the chance to work at that place again because of me. Damn it, I muttered, pressing my fingers against my temples. Impressive vocabulary. I spun quickly. Hadrian Blackwell was leaning against the hotel door, arms crossed, watching me with that amused and irritating expression. Leave me alone. I can't. You still haven't told me your name. And I'm not going to. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go figure out how I'm going to pay my bills without this job I just lost thanks to your inflated ego. I started walking, but he moved surprisingly fast, blocking my path. What if I offered you a solution? Unless your solution involves going back in time and not being a complete jerk, I'm not interested. He laughed. Actually laughed, and it was a genuine sound that made him seem almost human. You're fascinating, no one has ever... He shook his head. Look, I'm sorry, you're right, I was a jerk, let me make it up to you. How much would you have earned today? I don't want your charity. It's not charity, it's reparation. He was already pulling out his wallet. 500? 1,000? You think you can buy everything, don't you? I felt the anger bubbling up again. Including forgiveness. Keep your money. Use it to buy lessons in basic decency. This time I managed to get past him. My eyes burned with tears of frustration that I refused to shed. Not in front of him. Madeleine Fortier. I stopped, frozen. I turned slowly. How do you know my name? He waved something in his hand. My work ID, which must have fallen from my fanny pack. A slow smile spread across his face, and I knew, in that exact moment, that I had just made a terrible mistake. Madeleine Fortier, he repeated, as if savoring each syllable. Now we can talk properly. I didn't know yet, standing there on that cold November sidewalk, that that moment would change absolutely everything. That this arrogant and impossible man would become my greatest irritation, my greatest challenge, and, though I would rather die than admit it that night, something far more complicated. The blackmail would come later. The fake marriage would come later. But it all started there, with wasted champagne and wounded pride, under the twinkling lights of a world I never belonged to, and one I would soon be forced to pretend to belong to. The coffee shop smelled like burnt dreams and broken promises at 6 in the morning. Or maybe that was just my mood. You look terrible, my coworker Marcus said, sliding a double espresso across the counter toward me. Thanks. You're a real confidence booster. I'm serious, Maddie. What happened last night? Didn't the fancy hotel gig go well? I took a long sip of the scalding coffee, welcoming the burn. Let's just say I have a talent for self-sabotage and leave it at that. The bell above the door chimed and I looked up out of habit, then choked on my coffee. Hadrian Blackwell stood in the doorway of Joe's coffee house, looking as out of place as a Lamborghini in a junkyard. His designer suit probably cost more than the entire establishment, and several customers were already staring. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered. He spotted me immediately, that infuriating smile spreading across his face as he walked toward the counter. Marcus leaned close to me. Is that... Holy hell, that's Hadrian Blackwell. What's he doing here? Being a stalker, apparently. I straightened my shoulders and fixed my best customer service smile in place. Can I help you, sir? A cappuccino. Extra foam. His green eyes sparkled with amusement. And 5 minutes of your time. The cappuccino I can do. My time isn't on the menu. Everything has a price, Miss Fortier. I've learned that from you. Marcus was watching us like it was a tennis match. I grabbed a cup with more force than necessary and started the espresso machine. How did you find me? Your work ID was very informative. Nice photo, by the way. That's borderline creepy, you know that? I prefer determined. He leaned against the counter, completely relaxed. We need to talk. We really don't. I have a business proposition for you. I laughed, a sharp sound that made other customers glance over. The only business I want with you is you leaving and never coming back. Hear me out first, then you can tell me to leave. I finished his cappuccino with an aggressive flourish of foam art, a middle finger naturally, and slid it across to him. "You have 3 minutes. I'm working." He glanced down at the cup, and for a moment, genuine surprise crossed his features before he laughed. "Creative. Okay, here it is. I need a wife." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Not a real one, a temporary arrangement, 6 months maximum." "Are you insane?" "My father is threatening to cut me off unless I settle down and show some responsibility." His words, not mine. There's a board meeting in 3 months where he plans to announce his retirement and name his successor. He won't choose me unless I'm married. So marry one of those women who were hanging all over you last night. They'd expect it to be real. You, on the other hand. He took a sip of his coffee, maintaining eye contact. "You hate me, which makes this perfect. It's a business transaction, nothing more. You're actually serious. Completely. And before you say no, consider this. I'll pay you $500,000. The espresso machine hissed in the silence that followed. $500,000. That would pay off my grandmother's medical bills, my student loans, and leave enough to finally pursue my degree without working 3 jobs. "Why me?" I asked, hating how my voice shook slightly. "Because you're the first person who's ever told me the truth. Everyone else just wants something from me. You already can't stand me. There's honesty in that." "This is insane." "Yes," he smiled. "But you're considering it. I can see it in your eyes." "I haven't agreed to anything." "Not yet." He pulled out a business card and placed it on the counter. "My personal number. Think about it. The offer expires in 48 hours. He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Madeline? That hospital your grandmother is in? St. Catherine's? They're threatening to discharge her by the end of the month unless the bill is paid." My blood ran cold. "How do you—" "I do my research. 48 hours. He left, taking his barely touched cappuccino with him. The bell chimed cheerfully, mocking me. Marcus whistled low. Did that really just happen? I stared at the business card like it might bite me. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, elegant, expensive. Everything I wasn't. "Maddie, please tell me you're not actually thinking about this." Was I? The logical part of my brain screamed no. This was blackmail dressed up as a business proposition. But the desperate part, the part that laid awake at night calculating bills, the part that held my grandmother's frail hand and promised everything would be okay, that part whispered, "What if?" "I don't know," I admitted quietly. "I really don't know." But I pocketed the card anyway. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a clock started ticking down those 48 hours. I lasted 36 hours before I called him. 12 hours of that was spent at my grandmother's bedside, watching her sleep, tubes running from her fragile arms. The doctor said she needed surgery, the kind that insurance barely covered and payment plans couldn't fix fast enough. "You're troubled, sweetheart," Grandma Rose had whispered, her cloudy eyes somehow still seeing right through me. "I can always tell." "Just tired, Gran. Don't worry about me. That's my job. I'm your grandmother." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Whatever it is, follow your heart. It knows the way even when your head is spinning." If only she knew my heart was suggesting I make a deal with the devil in a 3-piece suit. Now I stood outside Blackwell Tower, a gleaming monument to excess that pierced the sky like a middle finger to everyone below. The business card felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. "Can I help you?" The receptionist looked at me like I'd tracked mud through a museum. "I'm here to see Hadrian Blackwell." "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him Madeline Fortier is here. He'll see me." She looked doubtful, but made the call anyway. Her expression shifted from skeptical to shocked. "Top floor. He's expecting you." Of course he was. Arrogant bastard probably knew I'd cave. The elevator ride felt like ascending to my own execution. The doors opened to reveal not a typical office, but what looked like a penthouse apartment masquerading as a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the entire city like a kingdom laid out for its prince. 36 hours. Hadrian said without turning from the window. I expected you sooner, or not at all. Don't flatter yourself, I'm here for answers, not acceptance. He turned, and something in his expression caught me off guard. He looked almost tired, human, but the moment passed quickly, replaced by his usual confident smirk. Ask away. Why me? Really? You could hire any actress, any woman who'd play the part perfectly. Why choose someone who openly despises you? He walked to a bar cart and poured 2 glasses of something amber. Because actors lie professionally. You couldn't lie to save your life. My father is a lot of things, but stupid isn't one of them. He'd see through a performance in seconds. And he won't see through me. Oh, he'll see that you can't stand me. But he'll also see something real, something that can't be faked. He handed me a glass. Authentic contempt is surprisingly believable as a foundation for real relationships. That's twisted. That's reality. Besides, he took a sip, watching me over the rim. You intrigue me. I want to know what makes someone so willing to self-destruct for pride. I didn't self-destruct. I chose dignity over a paycheck. Same thing when you're drowning in bills. I wanted to throw the drink in his face. Instead, I took a long sip. It burned perfectly. What exactly would this arrangement entail? 6 months as my wife. Public appearances, family dinners, the occasional charity gala. We'll live in the same penthouse for believability, but you'll have your own wing. After the 6 months and my father's retirement, we have a very quiet, very amicable divorce. You walk away with $500,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. And if I refuse to sign the NDA, then we don't have a deal. His eyes hardened slightly. I'm buying your time and your discretion, Madeline. Both are non-negotiable. I walked to the window, looking down at the city. From up here, people looked like ants. Is this how he saw the world? Everyone small and manageable? Your grandmother's surgery is scheduled for next month, isn't it? My jaw clenched. You really did your homework. I always do. I'm offering you a solution, a temporary sacrifice of pride for her life. Seems like an easy choice to me. Easy for you. You're not the one being blackmailed. Blackmail? He laughed, cold and sharp. I'm offering you more money than you'd make in 10 years. That's called opportunity. Dressed up as extortion. We stood in silence, the city sprawling beneath us like a game board. He was right, damn him. This was an opportunity. A horrible, degrading, absolutely necessary opportunity. I have conditions, I said finally. His reflection in the window smiled. I expected nothing less. No touching beyond what's absolutely necessary for appearances. Separate bedrooms. And I keep working. I'm not going to be your kept woman. The working part might be difficult to explain. Then we'll say I'm passionate about staying grounded. Philanthropic rich wives do that sort of thing, don't they? Fair enough. Anything else? I turned to face him. When this is over, you never contact me again. We become strangers. This arrangement ends completely. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Disappointment? It vanished too quickly to tell. Agreed. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss Fortier? I stared at his hand like it was a snake. This was it. The moment everything changed. The moment I sold 6 months of my life to save my grandmother's. I thought of Gran's words. Follow your heart. My heart said this was insane. But my heart also said Gran needed to live. I gripped his hand firmly. His palm was warm, his grip confident. We have a deal, Mr. Blackwell. His smile was triumphant. Excellent. We'll start tomorrow. I hope you're ready, Madeline. Your life is about to get very complicated. As I left his office, my hand still tingling from his touch, one thought echoed in my mind. What have I just done? Absolutely not. I stared at the dress the stylist held up. If you could call a few strategic scraps of silver fabric a dress. It probably cost more than my car, my very used, very unreliable car. Miss Fortier, Mr. Blackwell specifically requested. I don't care what he requested. I'm not wearing something that requires double-sided tape and prayer to stay on. The stylist, a severe woman named Dominique who looked like she'd been personally offended by my closet, sighed dramatically. You're attending the Metropolitan Charity Gala tonight. You cannot show up in... She glanced at my jeans with barely concealed horror. These jeans have personality, unlike that fabric napkin you're holding. They have a hole in the knee. It's fashion. Distressed denim. It's distressing, certainly. The door to the boutique opened, and Hadrian walked in looking unfairly good in casual slacks and a white button-down. How did someone make simple clothes look like a magazine spread? Ladies, how's it going? Your fiancé, Dominique said the word like it tasted sour, is being difficult. My fake fiancé, I corrected, is being practical. There's a difference. Hadrian's eyes swept over the rejected pile of dresses, then landed on me. You don't like any of them? I don't like being treated like a doll you're dressing up for your amusement. It's one night, Madeline. It's the principle. You don't get to control what I wear. He studied me for a long moment, then turned to Dominique. Give us a minute. She left with an indignant huff, taking the offensive silver dress with her. Hadrian walked closer, and I hated how my pulse quickened. This was just business, just an arrangement. What's really going on? He asked quietly. I told you. No, this isn't about the dress. You've been tense since you arrived. Damn him for being perceptive. I crossed my arms. I visited Gran this morning, told her I was engaged. She was so happy she cried. Isn't that good? I lied to my grandmother, Hadrian, the woman who raised me, who taught me that honesty was the most important thing. And I looked her in the eye and lied. My voice cracked slightly. So forgive me if playing dress-up feels a little hollow right now. Silence stretched between us. Then unexpectedly, he reached out and tilted my chin up. His touch was gentle, and something in his eyes looked almost understanding. I'm sorry. I didn't think about that part. Of course you didn't. You probably don't think about how your actions affect normal people at all. He flinched, and I immediately regretted the words. Especially when he dropped his hand and stepped back, walls slamming back into place. You're right, I don't. His voice was cold again. Professional. But here's the reality. My father expects to meet you tonight at the gala. We either show up looking like a believable couple, or this whole arrangement falls apart. Your choice. He was right. Damn him. He was right. I'd made this deal. I couldn't back out now because my conscience was bruising. Fine. But I choose the dress. Not her, not you. Me. A slight smile tugged at his lips. Deal. Just try to choose something this decade? You're hilarious. Has anyone ever told you that? Constantly. It's my best quality. Your only quality. Ouch. But he was grinning now, and I found myself fighting a smile. 45 minutes later, I emerged from the dressing room in a deep emerald gown that actually made me feel beautiful instead of exposed. It had sleeves, a reasonable neckline, and I could breathe without fear of wardrobe malfunction. Hadrian looked up from his phone, and whatever he'd been about to say died on his lips. He just stared. What? Is it that bad? No. His voice sounded strange. It's perfect. You look... What? Like someone I'd actually want to marry. The words hung in the air between us, loaded with something I couldn't quite name. My heart did a weird flutter that I immediately suppressed. This was fake. Just business. Don't get any ideas, Blackwell. This is still temporary. Right. Temporary. He cleared his throat, looking away. We should go. Don't want to be late for our grand debut. As we left the boutique, his hand settled on the small of my back. Just for appearances, I told myself. But the warmth of his palm seemed to burn through the fabric. In the car, he handed me a small velvet box. What's this? Open it. Inside was a ring. Not just any ring, a vintage emerald surrounded by diamonds that caught the light like captured stars. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Hadrian, this is my grandmother's. She'd want you to have it, for the arrangement, he added quickly. Your grandmother's ring? Isn't that a bit much for a fake engagement? My father would expect nothing less. It proves we're serious. I slipped it on, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Hadrian probably knew my ring size along with everything else he'd researched about me. Tonight you meet my father, he said as we pulled away from the curb. Richard Blackwell is a shark who eats weakness for breakfast. Don't let him intimidate you. I handled you, didn't I? He laughed. Fair point. Just remember, we're madly in love. Try to look at me like you don't want to murder me at least once. That'll be the hardest part of this whole arrangement. I know. He smiled, and for just a moment there was something genuine in it. But I have faith in your acting abilities, Madeleine Fortier. As the city lights blurred past, I touched the ring on my finger and wondered what I'd gotten myself into. Tonight I'd lie to his father. Tomorrow I'd lie to the world. But the scariest part? The longer I wore this ring, the less it felt like lying at all. Richard Blackwell was a man who could silence a room simply by entering it. Tall, silver-haired, with the same piercing green eyes as his son, he commanded attention the way other people commanded armies. When those eyes landed on me, I understood exactly why Hadrian had warned me. So, this is the mysterious Madeleine? His voice was smooth, calculating. My son has told me remarkably little about you. Then we have something in common. He's told me remarkably little about you too, Mr. Blackwell. Hadrian's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on my waist. Richard's eyebrows rose slightly, then he smiled. It wasn't warm. Spirited. Interesting choice, Hadrian. Your mother had spirit too. Something flickered across Hadrian's face. Pain? It vanished quickly. Madeleine is full of surprises, Hadrian said, pulling me closer. That's why I fell for her. Fell. Richard tested the word like wine that might be spoiled. How uncharacteristically reckless of you. Tell me, Madeleine, what do you do? I'm a barista, and I'm studying business administration part-time. The silence that followed was deafening. Several nearby conversations seemed to pause. Richard's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. A barista, not a question. A judgment. I make excellent cappuccinos, I said sweetly. Would you like one? Though I'm off duty tonight. Hadrian made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Richard's lips thinned. And your family? It's just my grandmother and me. She raised me after my parents passed away when I was 7. I see. Richard's tone suggested he saw quite a lot, none of it favorable. Hadrian, might I have a word? Privately? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of my fiancé. Very well. Richard turned those shark eyes back on me. You'll forgive my directness, Miss Fortier, but my son has never mentioned you before last week. He has a history of impulsive decisions. I need to know this isn't another one. Dad, Hadrian started, but I cut him off. You're asking if I'm after his money. Are you? Hadrian's entire body tensed beside me, but I kept my eyes locked on Richard. This was a test, maybe the most important one. Yes, I said simply. The word dropped like a bomb. Hadrian's head snapped toward me, shock written across his face. Richard surprisingly looked intrigued. At least you're honest. I'm also after his terrible sense of humor, his obsession with perfect cappuccinos, and the way he pretends he doesn't care about things when he actually cares too much. I felt Hadrian's stare burning into the side of my face, but I continued. The money is a bonus. The man is the reason. Smooth, Richard said. But words are easy. You're right, they are. I pulled Hadrian's hand from my waist and held it between both of mine, looking up at him. The shock in his eyes had transformed into something else, something that made my heart stutter. So I'll say this instead. I see him. Not the name, not the fortune, not the reputation. Just him. And that's enough. For a moment, everything else faded. The gala, the people, even Richard. It was just Hadrian and me, and those green eyes searching mine like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "You're good," Richard said, breaking the spell. "Very good. But I didn't build an empire by trusting pretty words and prettier faces. I wouldn't expect you to, Mr. Blackwell. Trust is earned, not given. I can wait." He studied me for another long moment, then nodded slowly. "We'll see. Hadrian, try not to do anything stupid before the board meeting." He walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a shark returning to deep waters. I released Hadrian's hand, suddenly aware of how intimate the gesture had been. "Did I pass?" "You were incredible." His voice was rough, strange. "Where did that come from?" "Acting, remember? Like you said." But my hands were shaking slightly, betraying me. "That didn't feel like acting." "Well, it was." I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, needing something to do with my hands. "Your father is exactly as terrifying as advertised." "Madeline, don't." I took a long sip. "Don't analyze it. We sold the story. That's what matters." Before he could respond, a woman in a stunning red dress appeared, her hand possessively touching Hadrian's arm. She was gorgeous, the kind of gorgeous that made me feel like a fraud in my borrowed gown. "Hadrian, I heard the most ridiculous rumor that you were engaged." Her laugh was like wind chimes, expensive wind chimes. "Please tell me it's not true." "Vivian." Hadrian's voice went carefully neutral. "It's true. This is Madeline Fortier. Madeline, Vivian Ashford. We used to know each other." The way he said it told me everything. Ex-girlfriend. Probably the kind who expected to eventually become Mrs. Blackwell. "Charming," Vivian said, her eyes raking over me with surgical precision, cataloging every flaw. "Hadrian does love his surprises. Tell me, Madison." "Madeline." "Right. How did you two meet? I'm simply dying to know." "She insulted me," Hadrian said, his arm sliding around my waist again. "It was love at first fight." "How unconventional." Vivian's smile was razor sharp. "Well, I do hope you know what you're getting into. Hadrian has very specific tastes, don't you, darling?" The possessive way she said "darling" made my blood boil. This woman thought she still had a claim on him. Thought I was just a temporary obstacle. So I did something crazy. I turned to Hadrian, slid my hand behind his neck and kissed him. It was supposed to be quick, performative, a show for Vivian and anyone else watching. But the moment our lips met, something electric shot through me. His surprise lasted maybe half a second before his arm tightened around my waist, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, and suddenly I forgot why I'd started it. Forgot Vivienne, forgot the gala, forgot everything except the warmth of his mouth and the way my entire body seemed to ignite. When we broke apart, both breathing harder, his eyes were dark with something that definitely wasn't fake. "Well," Vivian's voice cut through the haze, brittle and sharp. "I can see I'm interrupting. Congratulations, Hadrian. I hope she's worth it." She stalked off, and I became acutely aware that we were still pressed together, that his hand was splayed across my lower back, that I could feel his heartbeat racing as fast as mine. "That was," he started. "For show," I finished quickly, stepping back. She needed to believe it. "Right. For show." But the way he looked at me said he didn't believe that any more than I did. This was supposed to be simple. A business arrangement. 6 months, and done. So why did that kiss feel like the most honest thing I'd done all night? Living with Hadrian Blackwell was like living in a museum where everything was beautiful, and nothing felt like home. The penthouse had 3 levels, floor-to-ceiling windows, and probably cost more per month than most people made in a year. My wing was larger than my entire apartment had been, complete with a bedroom, sitting room, and bathroom that could fit a small family. I hated how much I loved it. "Coffee?" Hadrian appeared in the kitchen doorway, already dressed for work in a navy suit that should be illegal. It had been 3 days since the gala, 3 days of carefully avoiding each other except for necessary public appearances. 3 days of pretending that kiss hadn't happened. I can make my own, thanks. I focused intently on the espresso machine, a top-of-the-line model that probably cost more than my car. I know you can. I'm offering anyway. He moved past me, close enough that I caught his cologne. Something expensive and woodsy that made my traitorous body remember exactly how he'd felt pressed against me. Stop it, I told myself firmly. Fine. Black, no sugar. I remember. Of course he did. Hadrian remembered everything. It was annoying. We stood in awkward silence while the machine hissed and gurgled. Through the window, the city was waking up. Thousands of people starting their days. Normal people with normal problems. My father called, Hadrian said finally. He wants us to come to dinner on Friday. Family dinner. Just us and him. And my stepmother, Clarissa. And probably my half-sister, Juliet. Something tightened in his jaw. It'll be an experience. You don't get along with them. What gave it away? His laugh was bitter. Clarissa married my father 6 months after my mother died. Juliet was born 8 months later. Do the math. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't be. It was 20 years ago. But the way he gripped his coffee mug said it still mattered. Juliet's actually okay. It's not her fault. Her mother is a calculating. He stopped himself. Anyway, Friday, 7 p.m. Wear something nice, but not too nice. Clarissa will criticize either way. Sounds delightful. It's hell. But it's necessary hell. He glanced at his watch. I have a meeting. Will you be okay here? I'm not a child, Hadrian. I can manage being alone in a luxury penthouse. I know, He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Never mind, I'll see you tonight. After he left, I explored the penthouse properly for the first time. The main living area was all modern lines and expensive art. Impersonal, sterile. But then I found his study. Unlike the rest of the apartment, this room felt lived in. Books crammed the shelves, real books, not decorator pieces. A worn leather chair sat by the window. And on the desk, almost hidden, was a photograph. A younger Hadrian, maybe 10 years old, standing between a beautiful woman with dark hair and kind eyes and Richard. They were smiling. All of them. It looked like a different family. A happy one. That was taken 2 months before she died. I spun around. Hadrian stood in the doorway, jacket off, tie loosened. He must have forgotten something. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. It's fine. He walked over, picking up the frame. Breast cancer. Stage 4 by the time they found it. She fought for 18 months. Hadrian, you want to know why I'm doing this? The marriage clause, all of it? He set the photo down carefully. My father buried himself in work after she died. Built an empire to forget he'd lost a kingdom. Now he's obsessed with legacy, with dynasty, with continuing the Blackwell name properly. His voice hardened. He wants me married because that's what respectable heirs do, not because he cares about my happiness. That's terrible. That's life. He looked at me then, really looked at me. You asked why I chose you. The truth? You're the first person in years who's treated me like I'm more than just my last name. Even when you hated me, it was honest hate. Real. Everything else in my life is performance. This is performance too, I reminded him gently. We're performing for your father. Are we? He stepped closer. That kiss at the gala didn't feel like performance. My heart hammered. We agreed. I know what we agreed. Separate rooms. No touching. Temporary arrangement. Another step. But that's not what I asked. Did it feel like performance to you? I should have lied. Should have maintained the boundaries we'd established. Instead, I whispered, no. The word hung between us like a confession. Hadrian's eyes darkened and suddenly the air felt thick, charged. He reached up, fingers grazing my cheek. This is a bad idea, he murmured. Terrible idea, I agreed. We have a contract. 6 months, then strangers. Right, strangers. But he was leaning in and I was tilting up and his phone rang, shrill and insistent. We jumped apart like teenagers caught by parents. Hadrian cursed under his breath and pulled out his phone. Blackwell. A pause. His expression shifted to business mode. Yes, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, running a hand through his hair. I have to go. Emergency meeting. Of course. He grabbed his jacket, then paused at the door. Madeline? That photo, my mother. Her name was Eleanor. She would have liked you. You're stubborn like she was. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with a photograph of a happy family and the ghost of an almost kiss. I touched my cheek where his fingers had been and admitted the terrifying truth. This arrangement was supposed to be fake. But somewhere between the gala and this moment, between staged smiles and unexpected honesty, something had shifted. I was starting to fall for Hadrian Blackwell. And that was absolutely not part of the contract. Friday dinner with his family suddenly felt a lot more dangerous than facing his father at the gala. Because now I had to pretend to be in love with him while actually falling for him, and I wasn't sure I could tell the difference anymore. This was going to end badly. I could feel it. But I couldn't seem to make myself care. The Blackwell family dinner was a masterclass in passive aggression disguised as civility. Clarissa Blackwell was exactly what I'd expected. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer dress, and a smile that never reached her calculating blue eyes. She looked at me the way someone might examine a stain on expensive carpet. Madeline, what an interesting name. French? My grandmother's choice. She was a romantic. How quaint. Clarissa's tone suggested it was anything but. Hadrian mentioned you work in a coffee shop. I'm a barista, yes, and studying business administration. Part-time, I heard. That must be quite challenging, balancing work and studies. She took a delicate sip of wine. Though I suppose you'll have more free time now, won't you? The implication was clear. Now that you've landed your rich fiancé. Actually, I plan to continue working. I believe in earning my own way. How admirable, Clarissa said in a tone that meant the opposite. Juliet, Hadrian's half-sister, rolled her eyes from across the table. She was 19, with Richard's green eyes and a rebellious streak evident in her purple-streaked hair and leather jacket, completely out of place in this formal dining room. Mom, could you be more obvious? Juliet said. You're practically interviewing her for inadequacy. Juliet Marie. It's fine, I interjected, meeting Clarissa's gaze steadily. I understand the concern. Hadrian could have chosen someone from your social circle, someone more suitable. But he chose me. And that's going to have to be enough. Richard, who'd been silently observing from the head of the table, made a sound that might have been approval. Hadrian's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. Well said, Richard declared. Now, let's discuss the engagement party. 3 weeks should give us sufficient time to plan something appropriate. Engagement party? I tried to keep my voice steady. Of course. The announcement in the Times is running Monday. We need to make this official. Richard's eyes pinned Hadrian. Unless you're having second thoughts? No second thoughts, Hadrian said firmly. Madeline is pregnant? Clarissa's voice cut through like a knife. The room went silent. Even the staff serving dinner seemed to freeze. Excuse me, I managed. It's a reasonable question. Why else would my stepson, known for his, shall we say, adventurous dating life, suddenly rush into marriage with someone so... She paused meaningfully. Unexpected? Clarissa. Richard's voice held warning. That's enough. I'm simply stating what everyone's thinking, Richard. 3 weeks ago, none of us had heard of this girl. Now she's wearing Eleanor's ring and planning an engagement party. It's rather suspicious. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. I'm not pregnant, and I'm not this girl. My name is Madeleine, and whether you like it or not, I'm going to be part of this family. The words came out stronger than I felt. My hands were shaking with rage and humiliation. Madeline, Hadrian started, but I was already moving toward the door. I heard footsteps behind me. Hadrian caught my arm in the hallway. I'm sorry. She's always like this, but that was... Your family hates me. My voice cracked. They think I'm some gold digger who trapped you, and you know what? They're not entirely wrong. That's not true, isn't it? This whole thing is fake, Hadrian. We're lying to everyone, including your grandmother's memory. I twisted the ring on my finger. This ring should be on someone you actually love, not some barista you blackmailed into playing pretend. I didn't blackmail you. I offered you a choice. You researched my grandmother's medical bills and dangled money in front of someone desperate. That's blackmail dressed in a better suit. Tears burned my eyes. I need air. I pushed past him and headed for the exit. The cool night air hit my face, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. Because Clarissa was right, I didn't belong here. Not in this world of designer clothes and family dynasties and engagement parties that cost more than most people's weddings. Madeline, wait! I turned to find Juliet jogging toward me, surprisingly fast in her combat boots. That was badass in there, she said, slightly breathless. No one ever stands up to Clarissa. I think my dad actually smiled. Your mother thinks I'm a con artist. My mother thinks everyone's a con artist. She married my dad for his money and had me to secure her place. Trust me, she's projecting. Juliet pulled out a pack of cigarettes, then seemed to think better of it. For what it's worth, I like you. You make Hadrian seem... human. Less like the robot CEO he usually is. I'm not sure that's a compliment. It is. He's been different since you showed up. Lighter. Like he actually gives a damn about something other than quarterly reports. She studied me with those Blackwell green eyes. You really love him, don't you? The question hit me like a physical blow. Did I? This was supposed to be fake. A performance. 6 months and done. But standing there thinking about Hadrian's rare, genuine smiles, the way he'd opened up about his mother, how his touch made my heart race. It's complicated, I whispered. Love usually is. Juliet grinned. Just don't let Clarissa win. She ruins everything she touches. Don't let her ruin this. Before I could respond, Hadrian appeared in the doorway. He looked rumpled, worried, more real than I'd ever seen him at these family functions. Juliet, give us a minute? Sure. But Hadrian, don't screw this up. She punched his arm affectionately and headed back inside. We stood there in silence. A car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating us before plunging us back into shadow. I quit, Hadrian said finally. What? The dinner, the performance, all of it. He ran his hand through his hair, destroying its perfect style. I told them we were leaving, that they could accept you or not, but I wasn't going to sit there while Clarissa tore you apart. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. He stepped closer, and in the dim light, his eyes were intense. This started as a business arrangement. I know that. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like business. And tonight, listening to her talk about you like that, I realized something. My heart was pounding. What? I don't want this to be fake anymore. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility and danger. Hadrian, we can't. I know. The contract. 6 months. Then strangers. His voice was rough. But tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me I'm alone in this, and I'll never mention it again. I should have lied. Should have protected us both. Instead, I stepped forward and kissed him. This wasn't for show, wasn't for Vivian or Richard or anyone else. This was just us. Real, messy, terrifying us. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. What do we do now? I whispered. I have no idea. He laughed shakily. But we'll figure it out. As we stood there, wrapped in each other, I realized the most dangerous thing. I'd stopped acting weeks ago. Everything I felt was real. And in 3 months, when this contract ended, it was going to destroy me. The board meeting was in 2 hours, and I was about to do something incredibly stupid. I stared at the contract in my hands, the one Hadrian and I had signed 3 months ago. 6 months of marriage, $500,000, non-disclosure agreement. Everything neat and legal, and completely devoid of the one thing that mattered now. Love. Somewhere between champagne insults and family dinners from hell, I'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with Hadrian Blackwell. And I couldn't do this anymore. My phone buzzed. Hadrian. Where are you? The car's waiting. Today was the day. Richard would announce his retirement and name Hadrian as his successor. The board would approve. The plan would succeed. And I'd get my money. Except I didn't want the money anymore. I wanted the impossible. I wanted this to be real. The boardroom was all dark wood and leather chairs, filled with men in expensive suits who looked at me like I was a curiosity in a museum. Hadrian sat at Richard's right hand, looking every inch the heir apparent. When his eyes found mine, something in them softened. I love you, I thought, and that's why I can't stay. Richard stood, commanding immediate silence. Gentlemen, ladies, today marks a new chapter for Blackwell Industries. After 40 years, I'm stepping down as CEO. Murmurs rippled through the room. Richard continued, My successor must demonstrate not only business acumen but stability, maturity, and commitment to legacy. My son has proven all three. Hadrian. Wait. The word escaped before I could stop it. Every head turned toward me. Hadrian's eyes widened in warning, but I was already standing. I'm sorry, but I can't let this continue. Madeline. Hadrian's voice held panic. What are you doing? Telling the truth. I looked at Richard. Your son didn't get married because he wanted to settle down. He got married because you forced his hand. You made stability a condition for his inheritance, so he found a loophole. The room erupted. Hadrian stood, face pale. Stop talking. Now. The marriage was fake, I continued, my voice shaking but clear. A business arrangement. I was paid to be his wife. None of it was real. Richard's face had gone dangerously still. Explain. Immediately. Dad, don't... Hadrian started, but I cut him off. He needed a wife to meet your requirements. I needed money for my grandmother's medical bills. We made a deal. 6 months, then a divorce. The board meeting. All of it was calculated. You're lying, Richard said coldly. Why would you confess this? Because I fell in love with him. My voice broke. And I won't let him build his future on a lie, even if it costs me everything. He deserves better than that. You both do. The silence was absolute. Hadrian stood frozen, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Madeline. His voice was barely audible. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears streaming down my face now. I know this ruins everything. I know you'll hate me. But I can't. I ran. Down the hallway, past shocked assistants, into the elevator. The doors were closing when a hand shot through, forcing them open. Hadrian stepped in, and the doors sealed us together. What the hell was that? His voice was raw. Do you have any idea what you just did? I told the truth. You destroyed everything. The company, my position, the money you needed. I know, I shouted. I know I'm an idiot. I know I just threw away $500,000 and ruined your relationship with your father. But I couldn't watch you lie to get something you've earned on your own merit. You don't need a fake wife to prove you're worthy. You just need to be you. He stared at me, chest heaving. You fell in love with me. Yes, I admitted miserably. Stupid, right? Fall in love with the man paying you to fake it. Classic romance novel garbage. When? What? When did you fall in love with me? I laughed wetly. I don't know. Maybe when you told me about your mother. Maybe when you stood up to Clarissa. Maybe it was that first night when you actually apologized. Does it matter? It matters, he said fiercely, because I fell in love with you at the gala. Time stopped. What? When you told my father you saw me. Not the money, not the name. Just me. He stepped closer, cupping my face with both hands. I've been in love with you for 3 months, Madeline, completely terrifyingly in love, and I didn't know how to tell you because of that damn contract. But the money, your father, I don't care. He kissed me, deep and desperate. I don't care about any of it, just you, only you. The elevator dinged. The doors opened to reveal Richard standing there, arms crossed. Are you two finished with your dramatic declarations? We jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Richard's expression was unreadable. Dad, I can explain. No need. I heard everything. Thin walls. Richard stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the boardroom floor. You're both idiots, you know that? I'm sorry, I whispered. I ruined everything. Actually, Richard said, you may have saved it. That little stunt proved something. That we're liars. That my son is capable of genuine feeling. That he chose someone with integrity over convenience. That he's finally grown up. Richard looked at Hadrian. You really love her? More than anything. And you? Richard turned to me. You gave up $500,000 to protect him? I'd do it again. Richard nodded slowly, then, impossibly, smiled. The board is waiting. Let's finish this. Back in the boardroom, Richard addressed the shocked crowd. I've made my decision. Hadrian will be CEO, not because he got married to fulfill my requirements, but because he chose honesty over convenience, because his future wife, and yes, I said future, not current, had the courage to risk everything for truth. He looked at Hadrian. You'll start as CEO next month. First order of business, rebuild this company's values on honesty, not manipulation. Then to me, and you, young lady, will be finishing your degree. Blackwell Industries will fund your education. Consider it my wedding gift. But we're not. The marriage was, I assume my son will be proposing properly this time. Richard raised an eyebrow at Hadrian. Hadrian looked at me, and everything I needed to know was in his eyes. Madeline Fortier, will you marry me? For real this time. No contracts, no money, no conditions. Just you and me and whatever chaos comes next. I launched myself at him, laughing and crying. Yes, yes, you impossible, wonderful man, yes. The board erupted in applause. Richard actually chuckled. And as Hadrian kissed me, a kiss that promised forever, I realized something. Sometimes the best love stories start with a lie, but they only survive with the truth. 2 years later, the coffee shop smelled exactly the same. Burnt beans, cinnamon, and possibility. You know you don't have to keep doing this, right? Marcus said, watching me pull a perfect shot of espresso. You're married to a billionaire CEO. Pretty sure you could retire. And miss seeing your charming face every Saturday morning? Never. I handed the espresso to a regular customer with a smile. Besides, this place is where it all started. It's good to remember where you came from. The bell chimed, and I looked up to see my husband, my real, actual, legal husband, walking in with a baby carrier. Someone wanted to visit Mommy, Hadrian said, setting the carrier on the counter. Inside, 6-month-old Eleanor Rose Blackwell yawned, her green eyes, exact copies of her father's, blinking sleepily. My heart melted, like it did every single time I saw her. Hi, baby girl. Did you have fun with Daddy? Fun is relative, Hadrian said, but he was smiling. She projectile vomited on my Armani suit. Welcome to parenthood. Coffee? God, yes, triple shot. I don't know how you make it look easy. I don't. I just fake it better. I started his cappuccino, and our fingers brushed as I handed him the cup. Even after 2 years of marriage, that touch still sent electricity through me. Marcus cleared his throat. You two are disgustingly cute. You know that, right? We try, I said, grinning. The real wedding had been 6 months after the board meeting. Small, intimate, with just close friends and family at a vineyard upstate. Gran had cried through the entire ceremony, and even Richard had looked suspiciously misty-eyed when Hadrian said his vows. I promise to never buy your love with money, but I will buy you all the books you want. I promise to argue with you about everything except how much I love you. And I promise that every single day I'll see you, Not my wife, not the mother of my children, but Madeline. Just Madeline, and that will always be enough. I'd ugly cried. So had Juliet. Even Clarissa had managed to look almost pleasant, though that might have been the champagne. Speaking of Juliet, she burst through the door now, purple hair replaced with electric blue, carrying shopping bags. "There's my favorite niece," she cooed at Eleanor, who gurgled happily. "And my favorite sister-in-law, who I definitely didn't think would last 6 months with my brother." "Your faith in me was inspiring," Hadrian said dryly. "To be fair, you were kind of a nightmare before Maddie domesticated you." Juliet pulled out a tiny leather jacket from one of her bags. "Look what I found. Baby's first rebellion outfit." "She's 6 months old," I protested, even as I took the adorable jacket. Never too early to establish good fashion sense. Unlike Dad, who still wears ties from 1995, Richard had softened considerably since becoming a grandfather. He visited every Sunday, taught Eleanor to make ridiculous faces, and had even started a college fund that would probably pay for her entire education twice over. The relationship with Hadrian had transformed too. Still complicated, still challenging, but real. Honest. Clarissa, predictably, had disappeared to her vacation home in the Hamptons after the wedding and rarely visited. We were all fine with that arrangement. "How's the new location going?" Juliet asked, settling onto a stool. "Grand opening next month." I couldn't keep the pride from my voice. 3 coffee shops now. It's surreal. After finishing my business degree, funded by Richard as promised, I'd bought Joe's coffee house from the retiring owner. Then expanded. Hadrian handled the business side, but the vision was all mine. Quality coffee, fair wages, and a place where everyone felt welcome, regardless of their bank account. "You're building an empire," Hadrian said, eyes warm with pride. "A caffeinated empire, but an empire nonetheless." "Speaking of empires," Marcus interjected, "didn't you have that big meeting today?" Hadrian grimaced. Board meeting in an hour, hence the desperate need for coffee. 2 years as CEO, and he'd transformed Blackwell Industries. More ethical practices, better employee benefits, and a new initiative providing small business loans to entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. The board had pushed back initially, but the results spoke for themselves. Profits up, reputation improved, employee retention at an all-time high. My husband wasn't just a good CEO. He was a good man. I'd always known that, even when he was being an arrogant ass. Eleanor started fussing, and I lifted her from the carrier, her tiny hand immediately grabbing my necklace, the one Hadrian had given me on our first real anniversary. Simple, elegant, with a small emerald that matched my wedding ring. Eleanor's ring, as we called it. "Hey, Gran's here," Marcus announced, and I looked up to see my grandmother making her way through the door, moving slower than she used to, but healthy. Alive. Thriving even. "There's my great-grandbaby." Gran's face lit up as Eleanor squealed in recognition. "Come to great-grand, sweetheart." I handed Eleanor over, watching Gran cuddle her with practiced ease. The surgery 2 years ago had been successful. The follow-up treatments had worked. She'd beaten it. Every time I saw her, I remembered that desperate night when I'd almost lost her, when I'd been willing to do anything, even marry a stranger, to save her life. "You did good, sweetheart," Gran whispered, as if reading my thoughts. She looked at Hadrian, then back to me. "Your grandfather and I, we had a love like yours. Started rough, smoothed out with time. That's how you know it's real, when it survives the rough parts." "We had some very rough parts," I admitted, "and you'll have more. Life's like that." She kissed Eleanor's forehead. "But you choose each other anyway. That's love." Hadrian checked his watch and sighed. "I really need to go. Board waits for no man, not even the CEO. I'll walk you out." I grabbed Eleanor from Gran, and we stepped outside into the spring sunshine. "You know what today is?" Hadrian asked softly. "Tuesday?" 2 years since you walked into the Grandeur Hotel and insulted my taste in champagne." I laughed. "Was it really that long ago? Feels like yesterday. Feels like forever." He kissed Eleanor's head, then mine. Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to tell the truth when it mattered. For loving me when I didn't deserve it. For Eleanor, for this life, for... His voice caught slightly. For everything. Hadrian Blackwell, are you getting emotional on me? Maybe. Blame fatherhood. But he was smiling, and his eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you, Madeline Blackwell, just in case you forgot. I could never forget. I kissed him properly, baby and all. Now go be brilliant at your meeting. We'll be here when you get back. Promise? Always. I watched him walk to his car, not the Lamborghini anymore, but a sensible SUV with a car seat base, and drive away. Then I went back inside, where my grandmother was teaching Marcus some complicated card game, and Juliet was video calling someone, probably her new girlfriend, the tattoo artist from Brooklyn, and my daughter was grabbing at everything within reach. This was my life. Messy, chaotic, perfect. 2 years ago, I'd stood outside a hotel, jobless and desperate, and the most arrogant man I'd ever met had blackmailed me into a fake marriage. Today, I stood in my own coffee shop, with a daughter I loved more than breathing, married to a man who'd somehow become my best friend, my partner, and my home all at once. The contract we'd signed that day was long shredded, but the promises we'd made since, the real ones, the messy ones, the ones that mattered, those would last forever. Maddie, Marcus called. Customer wants to know if you can make that foam art again, the heart one. I grinned. Tell them I'm an expert at hearts. I've had plenty of practice. After all, I'd won the biggest heart of all, and it had cost me everything and nothing, a half-finished contract and a completed soul. Some love stories start with a lie. Ours started with a business proposition, a bruised ego, and terrible champagne. But it became something true, something lasting, something worth every risk, every fear, every moment of falling. It became us, and that was the best ending of all. The end.